Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 359. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com. I'm truly excited to have with us the professionally, highly talented, acclaimed creator of SWAT, the Secret Wizard Assault Team, Justin Koch.
Okay.
Justin.
I didn't realize it was acclaimed, but I'll take it.
Oh,
all right.
Definitely acclaimed. We were able to connect through our mutual connection, Jeff Haas, who told me you got to get Justin on because he has got an amazing book that is in the process of coming out called SWAT, which stands for Secret Wizard Assault Team. Eldritch Blue issue number 1, correct?
Yep, that's it.
What's the backstory of SWAT?
Well, I mean, there's basically it starts on like April 20th, 1999 with a school shooting in it's a Harry Potter knockoff kind of. It's a parody of Harry Potter, so it starts there with knockoff Hogwarts and the school shooting, and then he blows away his Voldemort, and that's sort of the start of a whole series of events where he ends up as a kind of a washed up detective in St. Louis, trying to just survive until he gets his pension. So,
and so what was the inspiration behind this? I mean, you mentioned Harry Potter, so what's the inspiration behind? Where did the story come from?
Well, honestly, I was just sort of growing increasingly irritated with J.K. Rowling on Twitter, and I just decided to make fun of her. Basically, is where it started, and it just rolled from there. I don't remember quite how it hit. It's one of those things where there's just sort of a lightning strike, and I started writing it, and I was like, this really works, and it took off real fast. So,
but it's, as you say, it's called SWAT. So the character itself, Larry Slaughter, is that the name of the character?
Yeah.
And so what are some of the supporting characters that kind of help him on this?
Well, there's Tiny Tim, who's about 2 inches tall, and he has a magic murder bag that lets him reach into an infinite warehouse where he can get anything he wants at any time. That turns out to be, I didn't realize what a big deal that thing would turn out to be when I invented it, but it sort of took over the plot in a lot of ways, in a fun way. But I kind of made a commitment going in that I was like going to ride out the insane logic of magic stuff. So I'm not going to like pull punches. Like if you could do this kind of world breaking thing, I'm just going to figure out how to make it not break. Right. And run with it. So he's got that going on. There's Mabelina, who thinks that she's a fake psychic, but she's a real psychic in that she is always attracted to the worst possible decision. Right. So you bring her in, you let her pick what she wants to do, and then you do the opposite. Right. That's based off this lady I knew who I represented, and she just had an unholy talent for sticking her foot in her mouth. Like whenever she was in front of a judge or an FBI agent or whatever, she would figure out exactly what she shouldn't say, and it just shoot out of her mouth. I mean, it was absurd. But that's where that came from. And then there's Lisa, who is a pretty straight-laced person, that she's there kind of as punishment for not misdeeds, for some things that she did that were pretty awesome. But anyway, it was SWAT's kind of like it's kind of the garbage bin of the St. Louis Police Department, where they just throw whatever they want to get rid of in. There's Hermes, who's a 3,000-year-old wizard who is really senile, but he will just not retire. And that's pretty much the supporting staff. Yeah. So
give us the setup here. So how does issue 1 unfold?
Well, it opens with Larry gets an order from his boss that he has to fire somebody on his team. And so they initially bounce off, well, who should we fire? And then they decide, no, we're just going to stage a red ball. We're going to call in some, crimes that we knew existed, and then create a red ball so they can't possibly fire us. And that sort of leads to them having to hunt a vampire down, who they didn't frame. He legitimately was murdering people, but they sort of pulled out that card to try to save a job, and then it sort of spirals out from there in ways that are completely unhinged. So,
Right. So Justin, in your world that you've created, have you been based mostly on creating like rules of like making it hard magic, or is it more soft magic in the sense you let the magic kind of decide where the story's going, or it's like no, this is how it goes.
well, the primary there's actually, well, there's many types of magic, but like Larry practices hermetic magic, which
Okay.
in is is basically, if you will it, you can make it happen, which is
Right.
pretty soft, right? It's hard to have
Right.
rules about if you can. So it's sort of a soft magic system in that sense, but uh, I follow through with the logic of it, I guess, if that makes
Right.
sense. So like Larry's not whipping his wand around and going pew pew pew. He just shoots beams of annihilating fusion, like antimatter, basically. Because if you're going to do it, you might as well do it, or whatever, right? It's I try to follow through with the unhinged nature of magic to some degree, but you also have to have limits on it, or otherwise you don't really ever have a story. So basically, the setup in SWAT is that you can do whatever you want, but reality is going to kind of crash back on you at some point if you do too much of it, right?
Okay.
So like you wizards in this world sort of choose not to use it unless they absolutely have to, in the most limited way possible, to avoid reality sort of kicking their ass eventually. It's like a karmic
Right.
debt. The more magic you do, the more you're going to end up paying for it later, right?
Right. Okay. And was this part as you decided to do this story? Did you first kind of like create the world building aspect of it first, like there's going to be these kind of monsters and this and what their
No,
history is, or you kind of going off,
I just
going,
started. I just started writing, and it just
did you?
I would have maybe 2 pages ahead of where I was most of the time. It's just it was. Now I say that I spent a lot of time dungeon mastering back in the day, right? So I
Right.
developed. I don't know if you've ever done that, but if you do, you get used to having 4 or 5 people trying to screw your plan up, no matter what,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of enjoy the improvisational aspect of it. Where I mean, I have the characters, I have the moods, but the plot itself sort of comes organically from what they just end up doing. And
Right.
sometimes I feel like if the characters aren't making decisions that you disagree with, you, you, it's not lively enough, right? And that's when the
Right.
fun stuff's really happening. Is when it feels like it's out of your control as the writer,
Right.
if that makes sense. So
Yeah. And so do you feel though as you're writing this then, are you in control or are the characters telling you what they're doing?
I definitely am not. I feel like there's a lot going on. I'm very aware. It's mostly subconscious stuff, right? And then it
Right.
sort of bubbles up into these ideas that. So no, I'm not in control. The characters kind of, yeah. Sometimes they do things where I'm like, the plan was for you to do this over here, but you just no. I mean, I just don't feel like you'd be in the mood for it right now. So we're going to do this, and that's when I think it gets fun, right? I mean, that's when there's the art's really there. I've never been one of those people that outlined everything and then methodically wrote it. That's fine if that works for you, but that's just not remotely how I work. And I think uh, in SWAT, especially the unhinged nature of it, really is part of what makes it a lot of fun. You know,
Right.
if it were a historical comic about Napoleon, that kind of thing might not play very well, but with this, it does work, I think.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. Without giving too much away, can you give us an example of where the characters went in a direction that you weren't expecting?
Well, for instance, I had these 2 guys. Burke is what they're called. One is it's kind of a master blaster scenario where there's a guy who got his head hit on a rock, and then, well, this guy, he's out in that area looking for the mental hospital. He falls, he breaks his head. One of the melon heads comes in and starts basically, helping him. and they sort of merge
Okay.
into a Master Blaster scenario where the melon head's riding around on his back, telling him what to do and stuff. Anyway, so he was supposed to be the big bad for like the third arc, right? And it just never happened. And so when I was about to have to write him, instead, I had this idea pop into my head of a guy named Count von Zollen, who is a goblin accountant pirate who sails around the ocean auditing you to take your stuff. And then I just ran with it, right? That's kind of what I'm talking about. Is like I have plans. Sometimes those plans happen. Often they don't, and usually that's when the funny stuff happens. Because I mean, the Count's a pretty fun character. Um,
Right.
and it's definitely completely. There's often this. The mood of SWAT is I want to at some point in each issue have you going like,
Who's the audience for this comic?
just think comic people who like comics. I mean,
Yeah.
what I got into it comics. I mean, I got into it pretty recently, and it's just a freewheeling, very fun environment. It seems to me. I mean,
Mm,
like they want you to be as out there and crazy as you possibly can. I mean, I think you get rewarded for that, and I really, really like that. I think anybody who likes horror comedy or pretty much just comics in general is going to be very happy with SWAT.
mm.
So,
And
it's
so do you've kind of mentioned it before. I just wanted to clarify though. Is this a satire? Is this a comedy, or is this serious? Is this like
it's all
violence,
of it.
gore? What?
It's
It's all of
it's
it.
it's got it is just me going at 110% for 36 issues. It's very serious sometimes. There are deeply emotional plot lines, and there's a lot going on. It's not just Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but it's also kind of a black comedy, I guess, in a
Yeah.
lot of ways. But no, I mean, I definitely poured myself into this. I mean, it's everything. uh,
Mm,
I mean, I don't know if that sounds like a bad, but um, I don't know. There's a lot going on, but I think people really like it.
right. And what? So when did you start working on this?
September of 2022, and then
Okay.
finished the last issue. I've written 30. Well, I've written 40, but the first two novels of the series are 1 through 36, and then I finished that in September of last year. So
So you have already all 36
mhm,
issues
yeah,
scripted.
I'm 4 issues into the sequel.
Okay.
So
Was this like based on 2022? Was this kind of considered maybe like your COVID project?
it was towards the end of. I mean, I they I, I guess my COVID project would be The Edge of Darkness, which is the other series that I wrote first. That's only 6 issues. Originally, it was 18. Then I cut it down to 6 because you know, it was just extra stuff, right? It was the books 6 through 7 of a really long fantasy series where they're just churning through plot points to get to the end.
Hmm.
Anyway, so but no, I guess I mean it was one of those things where it just hit, and I mean this is I'm so proud of this project. It's really been it's just inspiration. It felt like I was inspired while I was writing this.
Right. And so once it was written, did you have someone like edit it as well to kind of like proofread to
My
tweak
wife's
anything
gone
or?
through it. I've definitely edited it myself several times, and I mean before it goes into production, I'm sure that we'll have another editor go through it, but um, I think they're in really good shape as they are.
Hmm.
Um,
So so it is a comic. So who's the artist for the
Recent
comic?
Distler, she's
Okay.
done night crawlers. Yeah, she's also done night crawlers and a few other things. She's really interesting. She kind of has a style like Erica Henderson. I feel like it
Okay.
kind of rides the line of. She was right at the exact point of serious but also comic that I wanted for this.
Okay.
So I think she did a really great job.
So you've already written it out. What's your timeline on when can people expect the issues to be coming out?
Well, right now the hurdle we're at is that we need enough. basically Zoop and Kickstarter want about 50 to 100 email signups before they will launch the campaign. And so we're at the point where we're kind of trying to gin up interest to get to the point where we would have a release date. Uh,
Mm,
that said, I think once from the point where we get funded to the point where it would ship would hopefully be about 3 months. Uh,
mm,
I mean, we have a decent chunk of the current issue drawn as it is and lettered, and then we're moving forward with drawing the first issue even as we speak. But
okay.
because we might as well since we
And
have a holding pattern.
how many pages per issue?
21 typically, sometimes up to 22.
Okay. Okay. So you're looking at then you have 21 pages per issue. So by the time this is said and done, I mean you're talking about basically with 36 issues. You're talking about like that can't be right. I just 36 times 21,
600
756 756 pages.
Yeah,
That's
probably.
a that's that's a big graphic novel when you put it all together, huh?
Yeah, no, it is. It's but what I really love about comics, I mean, I guess when you put it that way, it is pretty long, but um, I love how it's completely freewheeling, but also incredibly structured at the same time because you have
Right,
22 pages, you got to get it done, right? You have to
right,
write a chapter, has to start here, you have to get here, and then I feel like I really thrive with that, where the structure sort of gives me what I need to kick off and do weird imaginative things to get the solution to do it, if that makes sense.
right.
Uh, I don't know.
Would you say so? How many issues per year are you hoping to get out then?
If we get a deal, a publishing deal, and everything's rolling, hopefully, at least 8 or 9 a year. I would hope.
Okay, good. All right.
I would.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hope.
Yeah.
But that would depend on her. We haven't really gotten to the point where we talked about that, but um, that would be that would be ideal.
Right. Yeah, because like say for instance, if you're doing eight a year with 36, I mean you'll get it done in four, no, 5. Is my math right? A little over 5 years.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's just how long it's going to take. Uh, but I just want to get. This is it's a it's a very. I mean, I'm really proud of this project, and it
Right.
needs to get come out. People need to be able to see this.
So are you, because you did mention before about the Dungeons and Dragons aspect to it, since you've written 36, you already know the entire arc for this. Do you see yourself now with like knowing, understanding what the world is like? Have you thought about making like some 5e supplements so people can play in this world that you've created as well?
Well, that's pretty far afield. No, I have to admit, I have not thought of that. That'd be a lot of fun, though. It'd be awesome to know people were doing that. Um, there are a lot of, I mean, there are a lot of references to extremely nerdy things. There's some LARPing. There's Magic the Gathering. There's a con segment, a flashback to a con that happened in '98 in Joplin, Missouri. All that kind of stuff. Like it's deep track Missouri nerd,
Right.
and that was part of the fun of it. Was it was just very, it's very it's the Missouri doesn't get a lot of attention, outside of the occasional meth documentary or whatever. So I like writing how people talk around here, I guess, and
Right.
um, the dialogue. I try very hard to make the dialogue really crack,
Right.
um, in a Missouri way. So
Are there going to be any references specifically to Missouri that maybe out of people outside of the Show Me State wouldn't get?
well, there's a section where I go back to, so going back to the as one of the cliches of police movies is the scene where your sergeant screams at you, right, or screams at the guy and all that. So I use that in SWAT where Larry hates his boss hates him, and we flash back to where it started. which is the day after they announced that the St. Louis Rams were leaving for Las Vegas. And Larry's just like, yeah, tough shit. I hated those guys anyway. And Girk's a huge fan, and that's sort of the spark of their, because you don't have any. If you weren't in St. Louis or around St. Louis people, man, when that was going on, they're very upset about it. And I
Yeah.
basically wrote that whole scene to just like Larry's intentionally needling St. Louis. I'm worried he's not going to be very popular in St. Louis because he is kind of a dick. So, but that would be the subtext of that scene would probably not necessarily be obvious to somebody uh,
Right.
not from Missouri, but it's very, I think you could piece it together though.
So, Justin, if people want to learn more about this book and they want to help support uh, this series, what's the best place they could go to?
Well, Zoop.gg, and then you'll see a SWAT in the upcoming project. So you click that and sign up. That would be great. I'm on social media if you have any questions for me personally. I'm just Justin Coke at Blue Sky, Justin Coke 6161 at Threads. I'm not on Twitter or Facebook, but if you want to hit me up on those places, that would be
Hmm.
I'd be happy to answer questions if anybody has any.
Right. And so, say for instance, if somebody's listening or watching this, say 2 years from now of this recording, and they found out that SWAT is out, how could they get the book?
Well, I don't know yet. We have the series out with. I mean, you should be able to order reprints from Zoop. I believe they do have that option, but hopefully by then it'll be out with Image or Dark Horse or somebody um, in that context. So hopefully it'll just be at your local comic shop.
Right. Perfect. All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on, Justin. And, congratulations on writing 36 issues of the comic and looking forward to learning more about SWAT.
Yeah, thank you. It was a lot of fun.
All right. This was a pre-show banter. This is just B-roll stuff we're doing, Justin. See, there you go. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think lotion, not having leaded gas, and not smoking indoors probably is why people stopped aging so hard.
Yeah.
You uh, Don Knotts, when he was like 42 when he looked like that, and he looked like he was 60. So
Wow.
yeah,
There was there was somebody just showed this image. It was just kind of like this meme of just pictures of all the people we presumed were like really like old from shows in the 70s and stuff. Like Red Skeleton in Sanford and Son was like 51 or whatever. His character was like 51 years old or something in there.
mm.
And then all these other ones of like, yeah, all the characters like Mr. Roper from Three's, like he was supposed to be like in his 40s. Like it's just amazing to think about how people thought
I
were
think Norm
considered
was
old.
supposed to be 34 on Cheers.
Yeah.
George Wendt, I think he was actually 33 or something. So yeah, I mean, something
Oh,
happened.
the Golden Girls, they were like past their prime and they were only in their 50s. That was when the Golden Girls were.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, but at least they were. I mean, they were trying to look older, I guess. But
yeah.
uh, I don't think George Wendt was trying to look old. I think he just looked like he, you know, grew up in a coal mine or something. I don't know.
All right. All right, here we go. Yeah, all right.